Okay, we've all been there, right? Staring at a bowl of cookie dough, tempted to sneak a spoonful. And we've all heard the warning, don't eat that. But is it just some old wives' tale? Or is there a real microscopic danger lurking in there? Well, today we're going to find out. We're going to trace the journey of a tiny culprit to see what's really going on. So let's just cut to the chase. The big question is it really that bad to eat raw cookie dough? You know, to really get the answer, we have to leave the kitchen. Our story actually starts on a farm in Iowa with just a single egg. An egg that ended up triggering a nationwide crisis. See, to understand the risk, you've got to understand the culprit. And the best way to do that? Look at a time when things went very, very wrong. This is the story of how one tiny microscopic bacterium managed to spark a massive outbreak. Okay, so picture this. It's 2010 on a farm in Iowa. A hen lays an egg. Nothing unusual, right? Well, just a few weeks later, thousands of people are suddenly getting sick. Then it gets bigger. Millions of eggs are recalled, pulled right off the shelves. And this thing escalated so much that egg industry executives actually went to jail. And it was all, every bit of it, traced back to one single tiny organism. And here's the crazy part. That 2010 outbreak, that was just a drop in the bucket. This same microbe infects millions of people all over the world every single year. It's a huge public health issue. So who is this powerful, invisible enemy? All right, let's officially meet the villain of our story, Salmonella. It's a bacterium, and get this, it's the leading cause of hospitalizations and even deaths from food poisoning. It's responsible for that less than pleasant trio of fever, cramps, and diarrhea. So the big question is, how on earth does it get from a farm into our food?
So yeah, how does this thing actually make the trip from the farm to our food? Well, its journey is a wild story of survival and some surprising twists and turns. Let's follow its path.
Okay, so it often starts inside a chicken's digestive system, where Salmonella can just hang out, completely undetected. But from there, it has a bunch of ways to get out. It can get inside the yolk while the egg is still forming, or it can contaminate the outside of the shell through feces. And if the farm conditions aren't great, that contamination can spread to other animals, to crops, and yeah, even taint the chicken meat itself during processing. It's a real master of getting around. What's just incredible about Salmonella is how tough it is. I mean, think about it. On its long journey from a farm to your kitchen, it can survive freezing cold. It can survive being totally dry. It's a talented survivor. But its real superpower for survival, that doesn't even show up until it gets inside a human body. So, the moment you eat something contaminated, the whole scene changes. Now, we're inside the body, and a microscopic battle is about to begin right inside your own digestive system. The first hurdle it faces is your stomach acid. I mean, this stuff is intense. For most bacteria, hitting stomach acid is game over. It's basically a death sentence. But Salmonella, it's got a plan. This is where it gets really smart. The second Salmonella senses that acid, it kicks into gear and starts making something called acid shock proteins. You can think of these like tiny molecular force fields. They pop up and protect the bacteria just long enough for it to pass through the stomach unharmed and make it to the intestines. But it's not in the clear yet. Once it hits the intestines, it runs into the next line of defense, your immune cells. They're immediately dispatched to destroy these invaders. But guess what? Salmonella is ready for them too. See, hidden away in its DNA, Salmonella has these things called pathogenicity islands. And you can basically think of them as pre-written secret attack plans. It's a huge advantage because it means the bacteria isn't wasting energy keeping its weapons ready 24/7. Nope. It just lies low, stays quiet, until its sensors detect your immune cells. And only then do these genes switch on and prepare for the invasion.
And this part is just wild. This genetic attack plan builds a tiny specialized system that scientists say looks just like a needle and syringe. And then, in a matter of seconds, it uses this little contraption to inject its own proteins right into your intestinal cells. It completely hijacks them, forcing your own cells to literally swallow the Salmonella whole.
Okay, but your body is not going down without a fight. Those invaded cells, they sound the alarm, and your immune system launches an all-out counterattack. And here's the crazy part, the real twist. All those awful symptoms you feel when you have food poisoning, that's not the bacteria. That's actually the sign of your own body fighting back. The second your intestinal cells get hijacked, they release these chemical messengers called cytokines. Think of them like emergency flares shot into the sky. They're a signal to your immune system to go into full-scale war mode. It's time to send in the heavy artillery.
So armies of white blood cells rush to the battleground. Their job is to destroy both the salmonella and your own infected cells. This huge inflammatory battle, that's what causes the abdominal pain and the fever. And in all the chaos, the lining of your intestines gets damaged, which means it can't absorb water like it's supposed to. So what does your body do? It decides to flush the whole system out. And that leads to, well, watery diarrhea. It's absolutely miserable. But for most of us, it works. It clears the infection out in about 2 to 7 days.
Okay, so now that we've seen the battle, let's talk about how it ends. Most people do recover, but the danger is very real, and some strains of this bacteria are way more dangerous than others. The good news is, there are definitely things we can do to protect ourselves.
Now, it's super important to know that not all salmonella is created equal. The typical kind we've been talking about, your body can usually fight that off on its own. But then there's S. typhi. This is a much rarer and much more powerful strain that actually causes typhoid fever. It's different. It can spread from person to person, it can actually hide inside your immune cells, and it can get into your bloodstream, basically poisoning your blood.
And the impact of S. typhi is just devastating. Even though it's pretty uncommon in many places, typhoid fever still kills more than 100,000 people every single year. The one bit of good news here is that thankfully there are vaccines for this specific dangerous strain. So how do you and I stay safe? Honestly, it boils down to some pretty simple but absolutely critical rules. Wash your hands thoroughly, stay away from unpasteurized milk, and cook your meat and eggs all the way through. Which finally brings us back to the cookie dough. We all think the risk is the raw eggs, and you're not wrong, it is. But here's the other culprit most people don't even think about, the raw flour. That's right, flour. It comes from a field, and it can get contaminated with salmonella out there too. So when you've got risks from both the eggs and the flour, the answer to our original question is a big fat yes. It really is that bad. But, washing our hands is only half the fight. We also have to stop salmonella right at the source. Remember that 2010 outbreak? Well, the investigation found a long history of terrible, unhygienic conditions and even bribery. Since then, thankfully, a lot of countries have put stricter rules in place, demanding testing on farms and actually holding companies accountable. And this bigger, systemic approach is absolutely vital. So there's no doubt about it. This pathogen is crafty. It's a master of survival and a tiny invader. But the good news is, we're getting smarter. Our understanding is growing, and our ways of fighting it are improving. So it really leaves us with this big question, right? This pathogen is crafty, but we're getting smarter. What's the next step we need to take to really win the fight for food safety?